Merit-based immigration. President Trump promised it, and this week he dropped the bombshell. I'm going to talk about that, its details, and 3 aspects that I think are really cool, and why I think this is a brilliant tactical move on Trump ahead of the 2020 presidential elections. And we're going to start right now. Hi, my name is Kyle Suggs, and welcome to my channel where we take culture, TV, movies, and we filter it right. Today, we're going to talk about merit-based immigration and what President Trump did with his memorandum to the Department of Treasury and Health and Human Services. What he did was he's looking at enforcing a law that was put in place 23 years ago by President Clinton. This law was part of the Welfare Reform Act that came out after the big contract with America when the Republicans took over the House and things started to change. Well, this is part of that. This particular measure passed overwhelmingly in the House and the Senate, and it, again, was passed by President Bill Clinton. Now, all this is reinforcing the fact that this law exists and enforcing it to make sure that it's actually applied. Because right now, it's not being enforced at all. And all Trump is doing is putting this memorandum over saying, I'm telling you now, you need to do this. So what it is this. So if you are an immigrant coming into this country, you need to have a sponsor. And according to this bill, this sponsor is going to be legally responsible for this immigrant. He or she takes care of them financially and any other way. And the way it works is they sign an affidavit saying that they will abide by these procedures and laws and responsibilities and so forth. And so I mentioned that there's 3 aspects of this that I think are pretty cool. Number 1, the memorandum acknowledges that people who have come in here legally but are now on social services, acknowledges that they typically will be exempt from being held accountable to this policy, but they will be in the future. Typically, they're done annually. Every year they have to re-up to get legal services. In the future, that's going to be scrutinized. Another thing, the second thing I think is pretty cool about this, is there's something called the deeming clause or the deeming rule. And what that means is that the sponsor and the immigrant are going to be held at a higher level in terms of their income and their ability to sustain themselves. So the government is going to look closely at what these qualifications are to see if they are at a level that's going to be acceptable to come into this country. So moreover, the overarching point of all this is that the sponsor is responsible for the immigrant, period. So if they need a doctor or whatever, the sponsor is the one who takes care of that. And so for whatever reason, that burden does not fall to the taxpayer. And that is what is missing from the enforcement part of this. What's happening now is the sponsor will bring them in, the immigrant who's come in legally, but they're now on the system, on the taxpayer to be supported because they're not either vetted properly to come into the country. In other words, they don't have the means to provide for themselves, or for whatever reason, things happen, but they still need to be under the sponsor and not the taxpayer. And that's the whole point of this, to alleviate the burden of the U.S. taxpayer from having to take care of these legal immigrants. So what happens is the Department of Housing and Human Services comes in and takes that data from the sponsor and then mitigates that against what's happened, what's been spent. And then they look at that to see if the sponsor is doing his or her job. If they're not, they will penalize them and will prevent them from bringing in more immigrants. See, I think this is cool because it really allows people to take accountability. Look, they signed an affidavit. They said they're going to do this. And if you don't hold their feet to the fire to what they signed up for, then why even have it? And so the third aspect of this is the incentivization of sponsors trying to get immigrants who can provide for themselves. And that is the whole point of all this. We want a merit-based system for people who come in here who can help us, who won't be a strain on our system, so that we can grow as a country and be strong and prosperous. We can't be strong and prosperous if we're bringing people in who can't feed themselves, who can't read, who can't do these things. And all it's going to do is be a burden on our society and alienate legal citizens here from having access to things that they're entitled to as well. So this is really a more fair approach, and it will bring a higher quality of people in. Because what's happening is that right now, 6 out of 10 legal immigrants are on Medicaid. And so the White House hopes that this initiative, pushing this already set in stone law, will allow them to do that. And so the White House thinks that just enforcing this 1996 law will help do just that. And that leads me to my next point, which is why I think this is one of the most brilliant tactical things that Trump could have done at this time frame. And that is this. In this memorandum, he actually names Joe Biden in the memorandum as if he was the one who actually signed it as well. And make no mistake about it, that was clearly a shot over the bow of the Biden campaign, because I think the Trump campaign feels that Biden will be the nominee for the Democrat Party. I think it's probably a strong chance he will be, but there's some things in there that lead me to believe that his candidacy could fall apart. But nevertheless, he's a strong frontrunner in that regard. And by doing that, he basically says, you know, you can't come at this because, number one, it's already a law that was put in place by Bill Clinton. It was signed by him. It was voted overwhelmingly in the House and the Senate. And not only that, your current presidential nominee, Joe Biden, or at least the frontrunner, also supported it. That's why it's brilliant. So the question is, what do you think? What do you think about merit-based immigration? Do you think that it's a good idea to have people come to our country who actually have merit, who actually can provide for themselves, who can actually contribute to our society so we can all go better? Or do you just think that this is just a political hoo-ha that isn't anything we should worry about? Comment below and let me know. And if you like the content on this channel where we take culture, TV, and movies and filter it right, please hit that like and subscribe button, that bell icon, so you don't miss any future content. And also, as always, please check out some of the content we have right here.